Tonight, not only is it Arsenal's biggest game of the season, it is also the biggest game in Mikel Arteta's reign. And while Arsenal are major underdogs, there is ways that they can get at Real Madrid that teams have not before. So in this video, we're going to look at what Arsenal need to focus on and how they can sneak away with a brilliant result at the Emirates. So let's get into it. Now, before we make this video, I do want to make it clear that Arsenal are clearly the underdogs for tonight's game against Real Madrid, and us making this video where we go through some of the ways that Arsenal could get at them doesn't mean that they will, and doesn't mean it's as easy as said, because Real Madrid are just one of the best teams in the world. But that being said, Arsenal and Real Madrid are very different teams. While Real Madrid are a team that like going from a mid-block to a quick counter-attack, they're very good at transitional attacking based team, but Arsenal of course are a team that really focus on conservative play and keeping the possession a lot of time, having control the entire time. Now of course this is definitely going to be good or bad for both teams where they can really exploit them. We know how good Real Madrid can be at defending more in a mid block, necessarily really low, but they can defend numbers in deep and get tight in areas which Arsenal do struggle with, and then can push the ball out quickly out wide and get in them 1v1s which they are so deadly from. And with the pace and the dribbling level of their attack, that is obviously going to be a big problem on the break against Arsenal, especially when you think Gabriel is not going to be playing. So that is obviously going to be a way that they can get at Arsenal. Now with that being said, there is still ways that Arsenal can definitely win this game, and especially I do think it is focusing on the strengths of the team. I do not think Arsenal should be trying to play in a different system or really drastically change things that we have seen them do in big games this year. I think they should keep it simple and focus on the things that they definitely have over Real Madrid. The first one of them is of course the physicality. Arsenal's physicality is one of the best in the world, and it's one of the big reasons why they've been so effective in many games this season against elite sides. Teams that try to pen them in, sometimes they brute force their way through and be able to get the ball down to the wing and cross it in. But even in defensive areas as well, they force teams out into positions they don't want to be in and then win duels and second balls in the middle of the park to win the ball back. And for teams that do actually have some sort of want to score, it is obviously a difficulty for them to actually continue to have that ball and actually have them attacked, which is one of the reasons why when teams do attack against Arsenal, you see them be even more effective than against low to mid blocks. And that's the thing with Real Madrid. I expect they will play a little deeper than they will in some other games, but they aren't going to play as deep as they always will. They will want to go onto the break at some points in this game, and they will want to score goals. It's Real Madrid. They're not going to sit there and defend against Arsenal. And this ultimately is something that Arsenal are going to have to benefit from. The first way to do this is definitely through the pressing. Arsenal, I believe, is one of the best out of possession sides in Europe still. They are so good at penning teams into corners and making them go long to make their physicality worthy. And although you can say there's definitely problems, I think, with Arsenal sometimes having that control and what they're going to do with the ball, getting it is not really the issue that they have. And I do think against Real Madrid that'll be interesting. Now, one of the things that they need to do well is when Real Madrid do try to pass the ball out, they need to be quick on them, not press all the times. And people like Odegaard are going to be very important for this, but they need to pick and choose when to press very effectively. If you can get Rice further up the pitch and not have Partey too isolated as well, which is going to be very important, you can make Arsenal even more effective. They can cover ground very easily, a lot of the midfield for Arsenal and the attacking line. And with Saka potentially being back for a start, if Arsenal can press teams into their corners and able to force Real Madrid to go to the fullbacks in bigger situations and then make them kick the ball long if they press really well sometimes, that is where the midfield really need to come back and win their duels against Real Madrid, because Real Madrid aren't a heavy duel winning team, which is one of the big ways that Arsenal can get at them and be quick and make sure that they panic in defence, which Real Madrid's team have had a lot of individual errors panicking in these times before. Now of course, for these to be effective, Arsenal need to be better from high turnovers than they have been this season. Now of course, that has definitely been a bit of a stick to beat Arsenal with, the fact that a lot of people are not happy with how effective they are at scoring their turnovers, but in the last two games they have scored one in each of them, so it's definitely been something they've been focusing on. I think you've seen a lot more people help each other in these breaks, and more importantly, it's going to be people like Martinelli, who's been excellent recently at running at players, and Saka being back will be very effective. And if you can have Marino being a backboard to play off or getting into the box when needed to, this can be effective. Now defensively, I think Arsenal will have problems in this game, I think, without Gabriel, and I do think there's a certain situation of who are Arsenal going to play. I think against a team that do want to transition very hard, you want players that are good at defending them transitions, and realistically Arsenal don't don't really struggle with these sort of defensive transitions overall. I think they are very good at them, but against Real Madrid, the best team in the world at it, is obviously going to cause problems. Now, you expect Timber to be fit and be able to play, and he is going to be one of the most important players in this game. He needs to be man-to-man on Vinny Jr. for most of the game, and even if he plays a bit more of a conservative style going forward, I do think that can be a way that we make sure that they can't break. Now, he needs to do this to make sure Vinny can't get away from him, and I expect him to be good at that. He's one of the best one-on-one wide defenders in the world, but it's obviously going to be a hard task. And when we do probably leave Rodrigo on the island, I would have to say more than Vinny to try and give him that space to kind of tightly be a bit more in. Miles Lewis needs to be a lot more composed if he is going to play at making them tackles and not making some mistakes, which we have seen in the past. But the fullbacks are also going to be very important going forward. Real Madrid's system, with the defenders that they have in the team and the amount of people out that they've got, is definitely a very flustered situation. Sometimes they focus so much on defending the box and they get a lot of players in there that they don't really defend or track runners that come from deep into wide positions, and they don't really follow these players. I feel like a lot of their focus will be on players like Saka and Martinelli out on the wings, and realistically that is where Arsenal can thrive because we are used to these situations. This is where we need deeper and later runs by midfielders and defenders in order to overlap and underlap to get past them. Jurrien Timber, I think, is probably going to be the most important player at this, which is why I think he's the most important player in this game. But not only does he have to do the defensive responsibility against Vinny Jr., he's also going to have to overlap or underlap late to help Saka. These runs could be very effective, and then if he can get crosses in from the byline or even from a bit deeper, this is actually one of the teams that Arsenal do want to get a lot of crosses in. Real Madrid, yet again, aren't a very dual heavy team. They're not brilliant at crosses in general, and they often get lost and don't really understand where the ball is going sometimes, where they can make mistakes. And for a team like Real Madrid, who are very attack focused overall, it's not something they've really had to look at many times because they rely on that attack to sort of carry them through in games where the defense isn't there. And not only from normal crosses is this going to be vitally important for Arsenal to be effective on, but it's that last point, is the set pieces are going to be massive. Now, Gabriel being out is a massive miss because he is the most effective player in the box, and he's sort of a player that you need to have two men on because he is that good. However, with Saka being back and with Rice being in the team, Arsenal do have their best two corner takers back, and they have still scored a decent amount of corner goals without Gabriel, even with other players stepping up. Now, Real Madrid do a system where they do a lot of zonal marking. Now, you see in the Premier League a lot of the time people do zonal marking within the box and then man-to-man a little bit out of it to track them deeper runners, but even then they've had massive problems where big defenders have been sitting in the central areas of the box and Arsenal just cross it over them or in front of them where they're not effective and cannot get the ball. And Madrid are awful at these corner situations. They have conceded one of the most threats from corners in this season, while Arsenal have scored the most in Europe, so it's a big clash of extremes, with Arsenal getting 7 corners per game, which is at a big rate as well. If they are really associated with this zonal market and want to keep that box clear, Arsenal could easily go back post and get away from that and have better headers on the ball. If Saka and Rice can put brilliant crosses on the money, there's always going to be a chance there. And not only do they struggle with crosses generally, I think they definitely struggle from them corners, which is another thing Arsenal can definitely exploit because they are good at it. So that will have to be really good in order to be effective. And there's obviously a lot of little things that you've got to think about in this game. I do think there's a certain level of Arsenal needing to have more physical and more 6-foot players in the team for the aerial prowess that we've spoken about. But then you've got to think about some people like Kivior. Can he be a vital player to play in this game? Now, Arteta has come out and said that he already knows who's going to play, so I guess them answers are already there for us and we'll have to see. But Jakub Kivior is a player that's been a well of talk in the last couple of weeks because he played great against Everton, I felt, but it's a player that people are worried against Mbappe, which is fair enough. Now, Kivior, contact-wise, physicality-wise, and maybe even athleticism-wise, can't really cover the ground and give that physical prowess as much as Gabriel, and he isn't really going to push out that defense and be that effective off the ball, in my opinion. And I would think that Arteta probably still won't start him and try not to start him, but I do think later in the game, maybe if certain things happen, Kivior can still be a very important outlet. And the reason why I say that is because of his passing. If Real Madrid do want to play this transitional based style where they wait for us to come the ball back and then they start pressing us to try and win that ball back, there is certain moments where I do think Kivior can get flustered and that could obviously be quite bad, but he is an incredible long passer and he can put brilliant passes across that left side of the defense through for someone like Martinelli who would thrive in them situations like he is at the moment. This will catch Real Madrid off guard a lot of the time and sort of play them at their own game, and Arsenal aren't the worst at it. We are a team that do go over the top a little bit, haven't been the most successful for it, but I definitely think in them wide areas it's going to be more important than centrally. Arsenal want a team that really attacks from central areas. Real Madrid will be used to teams that attack more centrally, and we can definitely really rely on the strengths that we have in the wing play, even though obviously it has problems in the Premier League. And ultimately, there's a certain level of this game where if Arsenal make it scrappy, we make it physical, I do think we can get at them. We are a bigger physical team. We can make it scrappy. We can sort of stop-start their attack and make sure that they get frustrated. And there's many Real Madrid players on a yellow card away from a suspension in the second leg. Many big players are that as well. So maybe if you can play into that, give some yellow cards to them, we can even have a weaker side against them in the second leg. Obviously, Arsenal are still the underdogs and Real Madrid are transitionally inevitable, I feel like, a lot of the time. And even in games they don't play well in this competition, they win over and over again. But Arsenal are definitely in a situation where there is things that we can do to put us in the best position to win this game. Now, thank you guys for watching. Obviously, the game's tonight, so good luck to the boys. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.